I would say good night, everyone, since I'm in the States and I'm 5 hours behind you. It's afternoon for me or evening, but good night. Welcome to the Premier League Forum, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. Should be an interesting discussion today. I don't see Andy, and I can't find Andy. So, Andy, wherever you are, you need to turn up because you got turned up last week. Good night, everyone. First, I want to welcome Drew. Drew, how you doing? Man City had a mixed week. How are things going?
We did have a mixed week, but I'm just very quickly going to say one thing about the UEFA Cup, about the Champions League. Better team on the night, but PSG took their chances. So that's all I'm going to say about it.
Okay. And Neil, how about you doing? You guys are on a roll, apart from being stymied a little bit by Brentford at the weekend.
Well, say no more. I mean, to be honest, when you look at Liverpool each season, whenever we do drop points, it's always going to be against those sort of teams. I'm more confident. I'm more confident when we play United, City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, than when we play teams like Brentford and Norwich and those sort of teams, because we always just seem to draw the games.
Be careful. Be careful. We have a new guest, everyone, with us. Simon, the Brentford fan. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
You brought
on your debut on this program. Yes, you brought a Brentford fan in to manage your view on Brentford in terms of the big boys and Brentford up. And Brentford has done really well since coming up. Maybe they're the new Leeds.
No, they have.
The previous season, Sheffield. So Simon, welcome.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be a Brentford fan and to look at the league table and see us sitting above both Arsenal and Tottenham at the moment.
Well, I say this. So last week, City won, so Drew's in a good place. Both you and Neil draw, and then my favorite person on the panel this evening, Andy. Welcome. Glad you could join us, Andy. How are you doing?
Welcome back. You see, Tottenham till I die. I'll take all the stick.
I'm not going to give you any stick. The week has been great. Tomorrow is a different day. Well, you know what? No, that's not true. This is going to last for a while, Andy. I'm sorry. It's going to last for a while. So here we're going to talk about the games from last week, and we'll save the best game for last from those discussions. So we'll start off. We won't go through every single game. There's a number of games played. But just get your perspective and your previous predictions on the first game, which was Newcastle versus Leeds, and your perspective on that game and how you thought the game would have went and how it actually went. Let's start with Drew.
That was the Friday night game as well, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So I didn't actually watch the game until the following day, but I got to say, St. Maximin, honestly, I don't get why he is just trolling about at bloody Newcastle still. That lad is quality. But for a 1-1 draw, though, it was actually a really entertaining game.
Actually, you know what? I messed up. I gave it the week before. There wasn't last week. It wasn't last week. The game when you talk about it, sorry, it's the Chelsea-Man City game. Sorry, Drew.
Oh, well, if we want to get into Chelsea-Man City, what can I say? No, City were absolutely dominant. And that was not something I was expecting. I think most people probably thought a draw would have been a good result for City. I definitely thought a draw was going to be a good result for City. But Chelsea just they look like a shell of the team that we've seen for the first few games of the season. And Lukaku, I think he's got a new home, and he has his pocket. So. But yeah, I predicted a draw or a City defeat, and we came out of a win. So
was it Chelsea or was it just Man City? Go ahead, Andy.
I predicted a City win.
Yeah, was it really Chelsea or was it more just how Man City imposed themselves on teams? Even if they don't score, they dominate the ball and put you never.
I keep saying, for me, Man City are still by far and away the best team in the league.
Oh no, right. I fully accept this, but I have to manage expectations being a City supporter because over my 38 years on this planet, no team is as good at throwing it away. apart from maybe Newcastle in '96.
Yeah, you did a pretty good job on the other night against PSG.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, you don't have a striker, and I think that's going to come back to bite you eventually. At the most time where you
Should have paid that 200 million for Kane.
Yeah, but do they really need a striker? I mean, realistically, City have so many players that score on a regular basis. They're not really missing a striker. A lower end team, definitely, but City have the biggest and the best squad out there at this moment in time.
I can genuinely see
yeah.
Ferran Torres. I can genuinely see him over the next 2 seasons becoming that centre forward. It's. I've got to say this without sounding ridiculous. It's like the Henry situation when he arrived at Arsenal. He's a winger, but you can see that he's got those tendencies to be a striker. I'm not saying for any second that Torres is in the same quality bracket as Henry, because he just isn't.
But you just did.
No. I mean,
I was going to say that's blasphemy, but that's okay. You know about potential, so.
He's got that look about him of he's a better striker than what he is a winger. He's not as good as Henry. I mean, players in the Premiership that have been as good as Henry, you can count them on one finger, and that's Bergkamp for me. So, but Torres has got that thing. He looks more comfortable going through the middle than what he does as a winger, and even the Spanish deploy him more centrally than what they do as a winger. So, I think over the next few years, we're going to see him move into that centre forward role.
Okay. So we won't spend a lot of time. We have a lot of games to go through. So I gave Drew the option of, and well, similar to what I gave Andy on his game, I gave Drew the option of the Man City game. Now, this is a neutral game, Leicester versus Burnley. And I'll go to Simon as the new guest. Your view on that game, Simon, if you watched the game. And your perspective on Leicester this season. They haven't started off really well, actually.
No, Leicester are really struggling. And someone I follow on Twitter this week was just really disgusted with their performance in Europe this week. So it's interesting because Brendan Rodgers was doing so well last season, but this season there's something not right behind the scenes, it would appear, because they're just not clicking in the way that they were. And to have that result against Burnley at home was a real shock, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, they have the same team based on last year. I mean, they lost Fofana, who got injured. And Evans been in and out of the team, but it's basically the same team from before. And they had Daka and a few more players they've added, and they've got some players back from injury. So a little bit surprised about that. What's your view, Andy?
Keep your eye on Rodgers to Spurs.
Is that a wish?
Over Nuno? Yes.
Okay. Well, there was the eye on Rodgers to Arsenal. So Rodgers has been linked to a lot of jobs, right? There was a Rodgers to Arsenal.
He will. I mean, I said I thought Leicester would struggle this season, or I'm not saying they'll struggle, but I don't think they'll reach the heights of last season this season, because they've lost Fofana, and Fofana was one of their best players last season. And that's a horrific injury, and I feel really sorry for the boy. But Vardy's still great, but he's not getting any younger. And people talk about Kane coming to the end of the career. I mean, Vardy's 5-6 years older than Kane.
Yeah, he is.
Doesn't run like it, though.
Sorry?
He doesn't run like it. He seems much more active than Kane does.
Maybe, but he's not got the ability of a Kane. But I mean, he's certainly got the running power. But
yeah, Vardy seems comfortable.
I just think
seems happy.
And Leicester in midfield, Maddison is not doing it at the moment, and I just think they look light at the back. What's that? Andy is a.
Say it again, Andy.
What does that say from Kieran? Andy is a
goat, I think it says. It looks like a goat.
Andy is, I'm not sure what Kieran is saying. You say you're a beautiful animal. I think that's what he's saying.
Well, GOAT stands for greatest of all time, right?
No,
the greatest of all time is what GOAT meant. Yes, that's
GOAT
true,
stands for greatest of all time.
But yeah, no, I think Leicester. I'm not saying Leicester won't be in relegation trouble. I don't think, but I mean, I think Leicester will be in the lower echelons of the top 10 rather than the higher echelons of the top 10 this year. So that's just my own personal opinion, that they might struggle a bit to reproduce last season. But that doesn't mean to say that on their day they can click into gear and beat anyone. They can. I just think that there are a lot more teams that are stronger this year. Villa and Everton are two, cases in point, who I think will probably finish above Leicester this season, in my opinion. But I think it's going to be an interesting battle for those Europa League places this year. I think there's sort of a number of teams that will compete for those positions from 5 to 10. But yeah, I mean, Leicester are going through a bit of a tough time at the moment. Although Legia Warsaw were pretty good. I mean, they were very good on the counter attack. They could have had 3 or 4 near the end.
Is that saying more about them or about Leicester?
I don't know. Leicester were chasing the game. We talked about last night. Leicester were chasing the game. And
Leicester didn't look as good. They did not look as good as they have done in the league, and they haven't looked that good in the league, to be honest. But to be honest, my view, I think it's the Rodgers effect. We had him a good number of seasons ago, and the best we did was second, and we did a 6th and a 7th after that as well. Rodgers is not capable of bringing a team up and keeping them up there. Leicester's best thing to do, in my view, is to get rid of Rodgers and bring in a more credible manager.
Wow.
And build from there.
But Neil, aren't you a little bit harsh though, Neil? I mean, Gerrard did slip, didn't he?
Sorry?
Gerrard did slip, didn't he?
Yeah, but it wasn't just Gerrard.
I'm glad someone else has said that.
He did slip. Do you know? He did slip. And yes, you can blame him in the Chelsea game. But when you look at the other games, the games that we drop points to, season upon season, to be honest, no matter who goes there, Liverpool's biggest Achilles heel is always the teams that aren't doing well. There was a good number of seasons ago where Tottenham were doing really bad. They were losing every game. Or almost every game to teams that they shouldn't be losing to, and then they spanked Liverpool when they played Liverpool.
Okay.
And that's what Liverpool does season upon season.
Well, you're saying that Leicester should reconsider Rodgers, and Andy's
Definitely.
saying we're desperate to replace Nuno with Rodgers. So it's a musical chairs.
I don't even think that Leicester's
I'm not
problem
saying
isn't Rodgers, though.
Rodgers. I'm saying that if we were to let Nuno go, then I think Rodgers would be in the frame, definitely.
So would you be
surprised? Why wasn't he in the frame in the summer, though?
Yeah.
He wouldn't leave Leicester.
I don't think he'd leave now, even with him on the side.
Rodgers was definitely on the managerial shortlist, and he made it quite clear he wasn't going to leave Leicester.
I don't think he'd leave now, though. Even on the slide,
yeah,
there's more potential for him to garnish his reputation, I think, at Leicester.
Potter comment, by the way. But yeah, carry on. Sorry.
Go on, Drew.
I think for Rodgers, he's in a win-win at Leicester. They have a bad season where they finished 10th. Well, you're kind of not expecting them to continually be pushing for 4th place in the Premiership. They finished 4th in the Premiership one season or 5th in the Premiership.
So it'll be a bonus for them, isn't it?
Yeah, they've done really well to get there. But Greg G made a good point on the comments, though. Literally, Maddison at the moment, he's doing a Harry Kane. And I'd also say that Soyuncu, who was absolutely phenomenal for the past year and a half, he looks like Eric Dyer all of a sudden. And that's what Leicester's biggest problem is at the moment. They're literally emulating Spurs.
Tottenham.
I'm sorry, Andy.
We're not, guys. We're not.
I don't remember seeing Maddison score a hat trick.
Yeah. We're not at the Tottenham bashing stage yet. We're going to get there. Don't worry about it. We have time in the program to get there. The previous comment was asking the question, coach's desk was, is Leicester's problem a debt problem? Is the squad debt problem?
Yeah.
Because they seem to have very good starting 11, but when they go into the second string, how well will those players be able to replace those who are in the starting 11?
Particularly defensively.
Yeah. I think that's their challenge. So we move on to the next game, which was Leeds versus West Ham. West Ham 1-2-1. Simon, when you take that one, what was your view in that game? And West Ham seemed to be riding a high from last season that has not discontinued this season.
I think David Moyes deserves a lot of credit for what he's doing at West Ham. I think they've really built on the the sort of surprise success they had last season, and they're doing very well to where they are in the Premier League at the moment. But of course, they'll have their hands full when they host Brentford on Sunday at the London Stadium.
Well, Brentford is doing well, actually. So, yes, I would agree with that. They'll have their hands full. Neil, your view on that West Ham team and the game versus Leeds?
Yeah, to be honest, when you look at Leeds at the moment, they're not playing as well as they did this time last season anyway. And they seem to be a bit of on a downer. So playing West Ham, West Ham on their way up, it was the worst thing that Leeds, one of the worst teams that Leeds could play, to be honest. West Ham, well, what more can you say? I mean, David Moyes he's just taking them from strength to strength. I don't know what the man's been drinking or taking, but he's doing a lot better there than he did at United.
Well, look, I think it's unfair to David Moyes to judge him based on his United stint, wasn't it? He didn't get much of a chance. No, but he did well at Everton for years. Everton went south after he left Everton. He went to Man U, wasn't given the run that Solskjaer has been given, right? Wasn't given a ton of money to spend. Didn't give it 2 or 3 or 4 years to manage a team. No, it's West Ham showing his qualities, frankly.
Moyes does well at middle teams, realistically. So teams that aren't expected to sort of get within the sort of like top 6, top 7, realistically, and he does well. And he gets some good results as well. And he's just carried it on with West Ham. I think United was a step too high for him. He wasn't ready for a team of that sort of magnitude, to be honest, and it showed in the results he was getting and the team and selections he was making.
Just coming back in on Leeds. Sorry.
Go ahead, Simon.
I was wanting to come back in on Leeds, and I think there's something about this sort of second season syndrome. So, Leeds came up last season. They did really well, but everything was brand new. It was so fresh. It was so exciting for the players. But now that they're having to do it all again this season, everyone else in the Premier League knows a little bit more about them. I think Leeds are finding it a little bit harder going this season.
Well, Simon, I think you should write that down for Brentford because you're up now. You're doing really well. You may do really well like a Sheffield or a Leeds, but the second season you said it's a whole different ballgame. But Brentford has been good for a while, so it's not like.
Also with Leeds, though, they've lost Alioski, who I think people underrated at left back. Yeah. I think he was a good player for them. And Llorente, they just can't keep him fit. He comes back for one game, then he gets injured again, and they're. But it is affecting them not having the play. And I think Hernandez as well. I think they've lost a few of their key players. So I think that's affecting Leeds. And as you say, teams have begun to work them out a little bit. And, remember they got spanked a few times last season, but they were able to put through a few good runs together, which got them into a good position. And they played excellent football. They've lost a bit of their energy. They're not pressing as high and as intensely as they were last season. And I think that's affecting their dynamic a little bit. Maybe the players just haven't got it in the tank at the moment. I don't know, but maybe coming back at different times from the the summer tournaments and stuff like that. Maybe they haven't done a proper pre-season as they would have done the season before, and they just seem to be finding their way a bit. I still think they were okay against West Ham. They were leading West Ham for about an hour, but they faded again, and West Ham came back and got the 2 goals late on or in the second half. And so I think Leeds have got work to do, but I wouldn't write them off just yet. But they've certainly got work to do.
I wouldn't. I like to add to that. I wouldn't write Leeds off, but I think watching the past few games, it looks as if their tactics have Bielsa's changed some of their tactics in the way they attack and the way they defend. Anyway, maybe he thinks that if they play slightly different in this season, they'll survive. I mean, they did really well. Nobody expects them to do that well this season. Second season is always harder than the first normally, because teams do work you out and they do know how to play you. So I think maybe what he's doing is changed his tactics slightly so that he can counter what teams are going to do, which hasn't worked so far, to be honest.
Well, I think Andy made a good observation, which is they're not pressing as much as they did in the prior year. That's no different from Liverpool. When Klopp first came, how hard they pressed in their first 1 or 2 seasons and then start playing a much more managed game. The
Yeah.
only team that's pressed
And
sustainably,
Spurs under Pochettino.
and Spurs and Pochettino. The only team I've seen that's done it consistently is City, frankly, the way they play. They force you then to turn the ball over so they can dominate possession. But most of
I'll
the
be
teams
honest.
sort of have
When
a
you spent as
realization.
much as what we've spent on midfielders, though, you can afford to do it.
Well, you have two teams.
I'll even admit it this time.
You have two teams. I mean, think about it. You have Sterling, Grealish, you have Marquez, you have Silva. All can play. Foden, all can play out wide. All can play inside, right? And you can replace them, and you don't drop off in performance. No other team that has that. Liverpool cannot do that. If Mane and Salah are playing, there's a drop off, similar to us or Spurs or any other team. Brentford is probably even worse. So
Actually,
you can afford to press 24/7 without worrying.
I'd wager that Man United probably have just as many midfielders as us now, but they haven't spent their money quite as wisely, or don't know how to use what
they've
they've
spent
got.
it all on two. They've spent it all on two players, haven't they?
Honestly,
they spent about $1 billion in the last 6 or 7 years, so they spent a lot of players. Next game is the Crystal Palace versus Brighton game, where Brighton snatched a point at the last minute. So I'll give that to you, Drew.
I don't know how to describe a game that I actually just. It was dull. It was just a dull game. The referee was actually a highlight at times. I mean, I actually quite like the way that Brighton play, but Palace seem to be like one of those teams that this year they seem to be able to nick a point or get a result against almost anyone at the moment. So, yeah, but the game itself, I just lost interest in it very quickly last weekend, to be honest.
Okay. And any comments, Andy or Neil?
To be honest, I was kind of like doing other things while I was trying to watch the game because it just did not grab my attention. I agree, it was a very boring game. The two highlights were the two goals, and that was it. And the ref, that was it. But yeah, it was very boring. Yeah,
So I saved the two best game for last. I'm going to save the best one for last, for the two best one. Brentford versus Liverpool. So I will have Simon comment first, and then we can have Neil comment. Simon, go ahead.
I think Brentford have showed in that game that we are the real deal. Since we came up, we've really found our feet very quickly in the Premier League. And actually, being at the game though, when we took the lead against Liverpool, and just looking around at all the Brentford fans around me, and there was a sort of look of stunned disbelief that we were actually leading Liverpool in the game. But overall, I thought it was a cracking game of football, and to see us put 3 goals past Liverpool, I thought was quite an achievement, really, when you consider the two resources across the teams. But for me personally, our first season in the Premier League, it was just great to see, some of the biggest stars in the league playing on our pitch in our stadium. So it was a memorable evening for Brentford fans.
I think Greg is saying well played wouldn't do.
Tony had a goal disallowed as well, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Yes, he had a goal.
Very tight offside. It was offside, but only just.
So Neil, before you comment, Greg says saying well played wouldn't do Brentford justice. It was like watching a Champions League final tonight. Interesting.
Wow. Okay.
Neil, your comment.
Right. To be honest, for the neutral, it was a pretty good game. I mean, there were goals, incidents, disallowed goals, as you can tell. Realistically, we should never have drawn that game. We should have won that one quite easily. Not to take anything away from Brentford, because this season so far, they're one of the few teams that has actually impressed me. Actually, as the team's coming up, they've done really well. But the mistakes that we made, the defending for those goals were just diabolical. We should never be defending like that. But unfortunately, it seems to be a common thing with Liverpool. I mean, we can score goals, but up until then, we had conceded 2 goals before then, and then we conceded 3 to Brentford. That was terrible. It was diabolical, to be honest. But not to take anything away from Brentford.
Brentford's press.
Sorry?
Was that not due to Brentford's good play rather than your mistakes?
No, it was the mistakes. Put this way, I'm not taking anything away from Brentford because I think that they'll do well and they'll definitely stay up. They won't go down. But by Liverpool standards and defending standards, we can play a lot better than that. And up until then, we hadn't made those mistakes. But unfortunately, it happened. Not to take anything away from Brentford, but yeah, we should have defended better. Had we defended better, we would have won that game. We would have taken all 3 points.
But my view is that I think Brentford need to take an enormous amount of credit in that game for actually attacking Liverpool in a way that a lot of other teams don't do because they're scared of what Liverpool will do. Brentford went toe-to-toe with Liverpool, and I think in some ways forced the mistakes out of Liverpool by the way they chose to play. I'm not saying they weren't mistakes. They were mistakes. But I think Brentford almost created the situation where Liverpool players were under pressure in a way they often aren't under pressure against other sides.
Pressure, and also lack of concentration as well, to be honest. As I said, we shouldn't have made those mistakes. Whether it's Brentford, City, or whatever, those guys are paid a lot of money, to keep that.
To be perfect.
Yeah, to be seriously, these football players, they get paid way too much, and they shouldn't be making mistakes like that. Yes, they're human and they will do, but to make that many mistakes in one game, for me, we should never have done it. We should never have done that in the first place.
I genuinely think, though, and this is the thing, Brentford squad, it's built of players who have been dropped by mid-table Premiership teams in the past, decent Championship players, and then you've got someone like Ivan Toney, who's literally out of nowhere. He bullied your centre backs.
Yeah,
like honestly, I genuinely think he forced those mistakes, and I'm not looking forward to having to play against them because seeing what he done to Van Dijk. If he does that, if he plays like that up against Laporte, City are going to be in trouble.
He will. He will. I mean, you've got to look at it this way: that the top teams do normally take the teams coming up very lightly.
Yeah.
And that's always the mistake because they think, they've just come up. And this wasn't, Brentford. Realistically, they didn't come up straight away. They had to go through the playoffs anyway. So out of the teams coming up, they were the weakest in their performance in coming up. But to be honest, I think they're the best out of the 3 teams that have come up, realistically. And I think they deserve to be there.
So I digress.
They're the most ready for the league.
Yeah,
definitely the most ready.
This is going to come if Ivan Toney gets injured, then I think they're going to have a problem. But if they can keep him fit, and other key members of the core of the spine of the team, then if they get lucky with injuries and suspensions, I think they can have a real good go this season.
I think they'll stay up. They'll definitely stay up. They're not going to get relegated.
A lot more of a problem scoring goals.
Yeah.
So here's the question. I'll digress a little bit. Should Ivan Toney get an England call up?
No.
Why not? Why not? I think to be honest, there's the thing I like about Southgate is that he's trying lots of different players. Whereas when you look at the managers of old, they had their favourites and always picked their favourites, whether their favourites were playing well for their club side or not. Hats off to Southgate. He's tried a lot of combinations and he's done well from doing that. And at the same time, he's given a lot of young players the experience that they need. I mean, how can you go forward and win games if your players haven't got international experience? He's done that.
All right. Simon, your view on that?
I think Ivan Toney needs to do it over a consistent period of time. So we're talking 5 or 6 months, but you've got that international window in, is it March traditionally? So whatever games you're playing in March, you may get a call up then. But while I've got the floor, can I ask the Spurs fan? Sorry, I've forgotten your name, but could you see Ivan Toney as a replacement for Harry Kane if Kane was to move on at some stage?
I think Spurs have, without question, looked at Toney as a possible replacement for Kane. I think they were. I don't think Brentford were prepared to sell in the summer, but I don't think that Spurs were ready to maybe pay whatever they would have asked. I think everyone's got their price, but I don't think Spurs would have paid what Brentford would have asked in the summer. I think now, having started seeing him against Premier League defenders, that might change come January or more likely next summer. We'll see. But yes, I think he will be on Tottenham's radar.
So are we saying that you have to be playing Premier League football to be called up for England? Because I haven't seen anyone in the lower leagues get called up in a while.
I think Southgate has made it. He favours the players that have got Champions League experience, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He said that. He said that many times. I mean, Calvin Phillips is the kind of exception to the rule at the moment, and Declan Rice. But those two.
Jordan Pickford.
Pickford as well.
Although I would like to replace Jordan Pickford when we eventually do get a goalkeeper who's not.
We have one. Drew, don't worry about it. We have one. We're getting him blood in. He's going to replace Pickford. Don't worry about it. He's at Arsenal. It will happen.
What we're talking about Ramsdale, who's had 3 Premiership
happen.
seasons and 3 relegations.
No, that's not him. Not him. It's the teams he's played on. He was good away in Spurs last week. But anyway, we'll get to Spurs Arsenal.
I'm more interested in Johnston at West Brom. I think Spurs are in for him.
He's a very good young keeper.
He's 28. He's not young.
I think
in goalkeeper years, he's very young.
I think Johnston could be the best of the English crop of goalkeepers.
Well, we looked at him and we bought Ramsdale. So either my manager doesn't know what he's doing, or Ramsdale is perceived to have higher potential. So let's go to the game, the featured game last weekend.
You also bought a few other people we won't mention.
No, we will mention them because they played against you. So last week, Arsenal played Spurs. And I remember the first 3 weeks of the season, Spurs were on top of the league and Arsenal had 0 points and 9 goal against. How times have changed. So, Andy, as you say in the UK, you have the cons. What happened last week with Spurs and Arsenal?
Spurs didn't turn up. Arsenal played pretty well. That probably sums it up in a nutshell.
You're not a man of few words, Andy. You're very loquacious. You're very eloquent. We need more than Spurs played and turned up and Arsenal played well.
No, I mean, yeah, I've seen that one before, Greg. There's a lot to say. I think every Spurs fan you would have spoken to would have thought that Dyer and Sanchez were top of the list of people to replace in the summer. They were up for sale. Sanchez was supposed to be being used as a make weight in the deal to bring Koundé to the club, but Koundé obviously didn't want to come to Spurs. Because we weren't in the Champions League, which I understand. And Dyer no one really wanted Dyer, so he kind of stayed by default. And then all of a sudden they got thrown together for the first 3 games of the season and they kept clean sheets. But and I did say this on here when we were top of the league, we're not going to win the league. We're going to struggle to finish top 4, but we might potentially. At that time, I said. But I think that what was proven was that Dyer and Sanchez got lucky in those first 3 games, and they've been exposed. We were exposed last week. They're not really up to. Sanchez has got decent attributes. I'm not saying that Sanchez is not a good player. He has decent attributes, pace, aggressiveness. He can be all right, but he's too prone to errors in the big games. And I think we've had enough now. That's not to say he won't have some decent games. He will. And I suspect he could go abroad and be an excellent defender in a bigger team that come under slightly less pressure. But for me, Premier League, no. Dyer, centre half, no. I don't think so. And me, I've been saying for some time that the 2 I want together, which was the 2 we had last night, are Romero and Rodon. I think I've got a lot of time for Rodon. He looked good for Wales. He looked good in a couple of games he played last season. Away at Chelsea, we got a goalless draw. Rodon played. It was his first game for Spurs. Played well. He's played well a couple of other times. He'll make mistakes. Of course he will. He's young and he's coming into the Premier League. But I think you've got to give these guys a run in the team. And we've just bought Romero, so let's play him. Romero and Rodon would be my choice centre-half pairing, not Dara and Sanchez. I would have Tanganga in there as well. Reguilon started off on fire when he first came to Spurs, but has really gone off the boil in recent times. I've been saying for weeks now that he isn't. I'm not sure he's the player that we thought he was. He's great going forward, but he's clueless defensively. He got exposed time and again last week. I mean, and the idea of last week, if you're going to, watch Spurs to dare is to do, that is our motto. I mean, last week, playing Ndombele and Delhi in the middle of the park in a game where it's always going to be a war, for fighting for the right to have the ball. I mean, that was just a nonsensical decision that he didn't play Skip. If he was going to hold and let Arsenal have the ball and play on the counter, he should have played Skip and Højbjerg in the middle of the park. And obviously, we were much better in the second half when Skip came on. But it was too late because the game was gone by then. Delhi and Ndombele, they were just getting bypassed, and there were literally 40-yard spaces for the Arsenal players to run into. I mean, it was just literally shocking all over the pitch. Kane and Son just looked frustrated. So, I mean, there's a lot of problems there at the moment. Seemingly, there seems to be unrest with Nuno within the dressing room. There are the rumours about whether he can turn that all around. I don't know. I mean, it was obviously great to see Kane and Son come on last night, and literally the moment Kane, Son and Moura came on, the game, it was over in minutes. That they were fantastic, and it just looked like the Kane and Son of last season playing together. So, and Lo Celso had probably his best game in the Spurs shirt last night. Scored a great goal, a couple of great assists with through balls. So, I think maybe that front four of Lo Celso, Kane, Son, and Moura is the way through, with Skip and Højbjerg holding in midfield. I'd have Romero and Rodon at the back. Lloris in goal. Tanganga, and I think either Royal or Tanganga could play left back. But I'm not saying that Reguilon, we could keep him for now, but he needs to learn how to defend. Sharpish.
Well, I'm glad you got out of that, Andy. I wanted you to speak about your team because I know how painful it is. I can't say I feel your pain. I don't. And I hope you get more during the season, and I hope it just gets worse. Neil, any comment? I want him to comment on the Arsenal game. We have the youngest team in the Premier League by a good little margin. We look good against your team, but I am concerned about Arsenal fans going overboard about this victory. We have won 3 in a row, but I want to temper that.
Can I just quickly say before Neil speaks? Just remember, you've beaten Norwich 1-0 with a struggle, Burnley 1-0, which you were fortunate, and you've beaten probably the worst Spurs performance in living memory. Okay. Don't get too carried away. You're above us on goals scored. You're not even above us on goals difference. You're above us on goal one.
To be honest as well, I actually think Jude,
probably, one second, Jude. Let Andy finish, because I'm going to come back at him. Let Andy finish. Go ahead. Andy, finish.
You're above us on goals scored, which is fine. I've got no issue with that. And it's true that you turned it around in 3 games from being bottom and we were top, and it's the first time it's happened in history that the bottom team has overtaken the top team in 3 games. I understand all those things, and you can have all your fun and enjoy it. All right? But what I'm saying is, don't get carried away, because when Brighton beat you this weekend, and we beat Villa, then we'll be back above you again.
Okay. Let me just say a couple of things. One is, we now have our full team. Let me repeat. Partey in the middle. We have the one Chucky Hero, you're going to buy it. Tomiyasu, we're going to buy it. You didn't buy him. We bought him.
Jack is out for 3 months.
Good thing, because we wanted the big goal. We want Sambi Lakanga to play beside Partey. So it's a good substitution. In fact, it's better for us because Sambi normally have like a 90% passing ratio, has legs in the middle, can see a pass. He plays like Partey. So it's a good thing. We have a good defense now with Gabriel coming back. So the Arsenal you see in the first 3 games of the season is not the Arsenal you're seeing now. We have a solid back 5 or 6. and we have some kids up top who can run all day. They don't score a lot of goals, but they're feeling better about themselves. But I won't keep on waxing about us and how we destroyed you this weekend and how you weren't on the park and how we were playing by ourselves in a practice game against an old-legged team that had not doing well. I won't keep saying that. I'll just stop.
Wow.
Or that we should have had a penalty and the ball hit the bar by an inch and, the game could have been different at the end.
Okay, good. So we'll stop beating up at Andy because Spurs will come back, I'm sure, and Kane will be the normal Kane. We'll go to the games coming up this week. And we'll start off with the first game, which I find interesting, is Man U versus an Everton team, which is doing well. So I'll give that to you, Drew, since you love Man U. Your prediction for the Man U Everton game, and I ask each of you to predict subsequent to Drew's prediction.
I mean, we know I'm never going to predict a Man United win. It's good. Everton will nick it. Rafa Benitez is going to be their kryptonite. That's it. Done. 1-0 Everton, just because it's United.
Neil?
As much as I hate saying this, I think it's going to be 2-1 to United, and Ronaldo's going to get that vital goal.
Simon?
At 1-1, United's woes will continue.
And Andy?
I must admit, I think it could be a draw, but it wouldn't shock me if United got a 99th minute winner.
Fergie time, yeah?
If it comes down to a penalty, we know what to do now.
Get Martinez in goal?
Yeah. Just get Martinez, have a word, in the ear, boom.
Yeah.
They've got a couple of injuries, haven't they?
Yeah, they do actually. Calvin Lewin has been out for a while. Not sure he's going to come back. Chelsea, Southampton. That seemed like an easy game. Simon?
Well, Chelsea are wobbling a little bit, but you think at home against a very poor Southampton, they would find their feet again. So I'm going to go 2-0 Chelsea.
Neil?
1-0 Chelsea.
And Drew?
2-0 Chelsea, hopefully, because I've just put their back four in my dream team. So.
And Andy?
I think Chelsea will win, but can I just make a point about Lukaku? You remember you all shot me down in flames when I said earlier in the season that although he is a top player, he's no Harry Kane, and you all laughed at me. And I said he doesn't score against the big sides. Did he score against Liverpool? No. Did he score against
had him in his pocket, that's why.
No. Did he score against City? No. Did he score against Juventus? No. So it's proving my point that Lukaku doesn't really do it against the top sides in the top.
Which Harry Kane?
Harry Kane hasn't scored against anyone.
I was going to say, which Harry Kane you talking about? The ones in prior years or this year's Harry Kane?
I'm talking about Harry Kane for the last 7 years.
No, we're talking about this season. We're very current, Andy. Which this season? Where's Harry Kane?
Harry Kane scored more goals than Lukaku had.
You should think Lukaku has not been getting good service, frankly. I've watched some of those games.
Well, neither was Harry Kane. Never getting any service.
Yeah, but I haven't seen Kane is playing. Kane
got service last night. Got 3 passes in 20 minutes and scored a hat-trick.
We're not talking about pub teams now, Andy. We're not talking
about. You were playing League One at best.
I'm not arguing it. What I'm saying is that he got service and he had 3 chances and scored 3 goals.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was making runs.
So Andy, next game is yours. Wolves, Newcastle.
Wolves. Is it Wolves? If Wolves are home?
Yeah, they're home.
Yeah, home.
Yeah, Wolves. 1-0 or 2-1. 1-0, say.
Drew?
It just depends which Newcastle turns up.
Exactly.
I'm going to go 2-1 away win. Well, 1-2 away win Newcastle.
Simon?
Tossing up between 1-0 Wolves and a 0-0 stalemate. So I think I will go 0-0.
And Neil, you ended up?
Newcastle are going to take that one. 2-1.
I'm not going to do all the games. I'm not going to do the Burnley Norwich game or the Leeds Watford game. I'm going to the Brighton Arsenal game. And I'll go to Andy. Andy, what's your prediction for the Brighton Arsenal game?
Do you want what my
I
head
want
tells me.
an objective opinion, not a Spurs opinion. An objective
It's very
opinion.
difficult to be objective about Arsenal when you're a Spurs fan. Really, it's really hard. My head tells me Arsenal will win 2-1. My desire and my heart is telling me Brighton 1-0.
Okay. So Arsenal 2-1 from Andy. Drew?
Before we ask Andy to be objective, though, whenever it comes to like these results, I mean, we've been doing this for over a year, and I've never predicted a Man United win. So
I asked him to be objective. I didn't ask him to be parochial in his view. Or
right, okay then. I reckon it's going to be a 1-1.
Yeah, I'll settle for that.
So Andy's changing his. Andy, you were right the first time. Andy, why change? Always go with the first decision. You were right the first time. Neil, your prediction?
Oh,
Why is this a struggle for you guys? I cannot believe this.
to be honest,
Everybody's struggling with
Brighton are a much better team
Hang on a
than
second.
what people give them credit for.
Brighton
are decent.
Bertram, you beat a pub team last Sunday.
I'm looking at
Harry Kane doesn't play for a pub team. He's a world-class striker. So go ahead, Neil.
Right, okay, so looking at when you look at the past few weeks' results, Arsenal have kind of struggled to win. They've won, they've got the 3 points, but they haven't done it. Apart from Spurs, they haven't done it convincingly. Brighton are a tough team to beat, and they've had a couple of victories, winnings so far this season. I think that's going to be 1-0 to Brighton. To be honest, they're going to be tough to break down.
We've got some injuries. I think Welbeck and Alzate are out, and Basuma's got a fitness test or something. So
yeah, but
Apollo's taking a stab at you, Andy. He's saying Andy Bertram. He's saying that. He's saying I don't understand pub teams. He only knows Bush League. Well, that's what Arsenal used to play in the Europa League. That's why I call them Bush League. And they would get all excited about the kids scoring, and they come to the Premier League and they can't score. But so you're saying 1-0 to Brighton, Neil?
Yeah,
I hope you're wrong.
Simon,
your prediction?
I think Arsenal are playing with just a little bit more confidence now, especially after the Spurs results. So I'm actually going to go for Brighton 1, Arsenal 2.
See, a man with logic, deductive reasoning, great assessment, and come to a conclusion. Thank you, Simon.
Where are all those compliments for me when I predicted the same score?
You're Spurs. I never compliment Spurs. I can't. I'm going to be parochial like Drew when it comes to Man U about Spurs. No, but Andy, we appreciate the 2-1 actually. But then you took it back because Drew tried to convince you otherwise when you were being very logical.
Devil's advocate. That is all I played. And I might change it to Brighton now. So
Tottenham Villa, and I will go. Let Simon go this time. I'll go to Andy last. Tottenham Villa, Simon.
I'm sorry, Andy. I can see Villa winning this one. I think Dean Smith's doing an excellent job there. I think Buendia will be back and firing and fighting fit after his. He was a substitute in the last game, I think, wasn't he, because of his time off in South America? But I think this time he'll be back. I think he adds a lot to that side. I'm going to go for a 2-0 Villa.
Wow, Tottenham's at home, by the way. You know.
Yeah.
Oh, so they're home. That big stadium doesn't matter with fans in the stadium.
Hey, look what happened to Joshua in the stadium, man. Joshua lost in the stadium, so what more can you say?
Okay, we won't talk about Joshua.
Yeah, that's another story, yeah?
He's built up by the UK media. But we'll talk about that. Neil, what your prediction on the Aston Villa Tottenham?
To be honest, I think Tyrone Mings is going to have Harry Kane in his pocket this weekend. Spurs need to bounce back, especially after last week. But if they play the way they played last week, Villa will have them. I'd say 1-0 to Villa. Sorry, Andy.
Yeah. Wow. So Simon says 2-0 Villa. You're saying 1-0. Drew, save Andy, please.
I'm with Simon on this actually. I think it'd be. Wow. I think it will be 2-0. You look at the Villa squad though. Better keeper, check. Better back four, check. Better midfield, check. The only place where Spurs are better right about now is with Son and Mora. Although,
Yeah.
I think they're better than
that,
Ince and Watkins
What
and
about
maybe
Kane?
Bailey
You're
and
missing out
or
Kane.
really?
Their star player.
I can't say Kane because I'm basing it on current form.
Okay.
If I'm basing it on current form, I mean,
Well,
I'm
didn't he
quite
get a
glad
hat-trick
that
the other
City didn't
night?
get Kane now. If we're basing it on current form,
Wow.
he's honestly, I don't know what happened to him because apparently he's focused on being at Spurs now, but his head looks absolutely shot in the league.
Yeah.
So I've got to pick Villa to win.
Wow. That's 3-0, Andy. Andy, save your team, please.
Come on, Bertram. What's your prediction? I'll go last.
I'm gonna say 2-2. I don't think Tottenham's as bad as people think they are. They beat City, for Christ's sake, in the first game of the season. They fill up the wagon somewhat. They need to rebalance the team. I'm not sure Royal is the solution. He didn't come to us. Maybe that's why I think that way about him. Reguilon is a good player. Sanchez is a good player. Dyer, you should have got rid of him a while ago, like we get rid of our dead weight. The midfield was poor setup last week. You can't play Ndombele and Ali in the middle. Ali's a 10 or he doesn't play. And Ndombele is probably even a 10. He's not even a 6 or 8 because of the way he plays. Get the balance in the midfield. Play Skip and play Højbjerg, 2 center midfielders. Protect your center backs who are not as good as they need to be. And let the Mora and the Kanes and Son fly up front. That's your best team. Don't try to play that the other team is playing like you played against us because we have a bunch of thoroughbreds. Good what you're good at. You beat City playing like the Sam Allardyce way. Play against the better teams that way. And the other teams you can dominate, you go dominate them. Andy? So I'm giving you a draw.
I think a lot of this will depend on what team he puts on the park. I think if he picks the right team, and for me, that's Romero and Rodon at centre half, I suspect because they played last night, he's more likely to revert to perhaps playing Romero with either Dyer or Sanchez. But I think that would be a mistake. I'd like to see Romero and Rodon again playing at centre half. I also think, and while we are sorting the mess out, I think he has to play Højbjerg and Skip in the middle of the park. Not because that's the style of play that I really want to see to holding midfield players, but I believe we need the combativeness to win the ball from those 2 players. Right now, while we're lacking in confidence, we need that insurance in there. He needs to decide, in my opinion, neither Dele or Ndombele. I rate both of them, and Ndombele in particular, I think, has a special talent, but defending is not it. His talent is attacking the other team, going past players, attacking the other team. He needs to be put in dangerous areas of the field. So, to me, you either play Ndombele as a 10 or you don't play him. That's my view. I think if you're going to play him, you need to have 2 workhorses behind him because he's not going to do the work that you need to do. So the question is, you decide, can we have his luxury? Right now, I would say we can't afford that luxury right now. My view is this weekend we should go with Skip, Højbjerg and Lo Celso as the 10. And I would leave both Ali and Ndombele on the bench. Lo Celso looked very good last night and was buzzing when Kane, Son and Mora came on making the runs. Lo Celso was finding them through Paul. If you get a chance just to see the assist last night, Lo Celso assisted 2 of the last few goals and he scored a great goal himself. Admittedly, I accept all the criticism. I mean, we would 2-0 up in 7 minutes. Just like they wouldn't have scored those 2 goals against my Sunday team. So I mean, you've got to balance the fact that we won 5-1. We should have had double figures, but they had a good spell in the game where they got back to 2-1 and could have equalised. So that still shows that we have a problem within the side, that even against a pub team, the guy struck a brilliant volley for the goal. It was actually a sensational goal that they scored. But we've got issues. The question is, if they're up for it, if they've had a dressing room showdown, if Son and Kane are on board and show the move. The difference was last night they were making the runs forward rather than Kane's been making a lot of runs backwards to receive the ball. last night, he started making runs forward, probably because they were weaker. I don't doubt that. But once he started making forward runs, Moura and Lo Celso and Son found it. So to me, that's got to be a thing for Sunday. Is Kane needs to make the forward runs, because last night he made very intelligent runs. Now he might not get away with that against Mings and Konza, and Hauser, quite possibly, but at least he was doing the right things and the ball was finding. We'll probably need more creativity. We've got a dearth of creativity at the moment. But let's see.
What's your prediction? What's your prediction?
Being the eternal optimist, I've got to say I think we can bounce back and win 2-1 Sunday. If you go on form alone, and I'm very impressed with Villa this season. I think they've got a very strong squad, and again, if you're looking at what your head's telling you, you're saying probably a Villa away win. But I believe that we are better than we've been showing in the last couple of weeks, and if they've managed to thrash it out, because I think it's down to the players. I think if the players want it, I think they can get it. But if there's still this sort of malaise where they're thinking, well, if we lose another game, we could get rid of Nuno. If that's going to happen, then it could be any score against us. But if they've had a big showdown, which supposedly they have, to bang some heads together, and they've come out and decided they're going to have a go, then I think we can turn it around. And if we get a win against Villa on the back of last night, then go into the international break and everyone's on a high. If we lose against Villa, then I think the knives will be out for Nuno in the international break. So, I don't think Levy will sack him this soon. But something's got to give. If we lose on Sunday, we've got problems on our hands. So,
well, I do hope that, even though I predicted you draw, I do hope you lose on Sunday. Next game, West Ham versus Brentford. Neil, West Ham versus Brentford. No, I'll go to Drew first, then you, Neil.
Quite honestly, I just want goals in this game. Right, so I've got Antonio in my dream team, so I'd like him to score a couple. But
I've got Antonio and Tony.
So have I.
Wow.
Neil wants a 3-3 draw with a hat trick.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Well, I don't want Brentford to do too much damage here to West Ham, but so I've got a West Ham centre back as well. I've got Jop. Although he's not been playing in the league, so actually, let's go for a 3-3 draw. So as long as Jop doesn't start.
Okay.
Do you know what? Brentford have been playing well, and I think that Moyes he'll have them this weekend. I think West Ham will do it 2-1.
Okay.
To be honest,
I could see it being a 1-1 draw, possibly 2-2.
And Simon, best for last. Your team.
My team. I think it's another incredibly difficult game for my team. And Head says, being realistic, I'm going for 2-2. I think there will be some goals in the game.
Yeah.
But I can't see us coming away with all 3 points.
I think West Ham will win. Is Pinnock still injured, or has he recovered?
I'm expecting him to play.
Because his replacement didn't seem that great to me, frankly, when I looked at his replacement. So
yeah, his replacement only joined in the summer. He's a Danish, so with our strong sort of Danish connections, that's where he came from.
I'm going to predict a 2-1 West Ham win.
Yeah.
Crystal Palace Leicester. Andy, interesting game.
I actually think that Leicester I think one of the problems that Leicester are having is Europe. I think they're beginning to sort of, this season, with the couple of injuries that they've had, I think that the Thursday nights are causing them a problem. And I think Palace can win this one. I'm going to go 1-0 Palace.
Wow. Drew? I'm in agreement with Andy on it. I think it will be a Palace win. Palace are waiting for a breakout result at the moment. They're getting better every week, in terms of the quality they're producing in their midfield. Zaha's looking more dangerous week on week. I could. Do you know what? If Palace really hit their stride, the way Leicester are defending at the moment, I could see 2-1 to Palace.
Neil?
I can see 2-1 to Palace as well. As long as Benteke doesn't play, then yeah, Palace definitely.
Simon?
Palace are strong at home. They're really hard
Yeah.
to break down and to beat at home. So I'm going 2-0 Palace.
Yeah, I think Palace, Gallagher has helped them quite a bit. Zaha is playing better. The kid from Celtic who they just bought is now become a starter. They have a pretty balanced team, actually. I'm going to go for a draw, though. I think Leicester, look, Vardy is looking sharp as ever. And I think players like Madison are too good to be playing the way they're playing. And Palace, maybe they break out game because they won't press them. They'll have more room on the ball. So I'll go for a 2-2. And now we come to the game of the weekend before the international break. Man City versus Liverpool. And so we both have Man City and Liverpool fan on the panel. So I'll go to Drew first.
Is it at Anfield?
It's at
Yes.
Anfield. Yes, at
Yeah.
Anfield.
Yes. So Drew, as the way
We do not have a good record at Anfield. Not in recent history. Not in any history do we have a good record at Anfield. We've got a few draws there, but we tend to not play great when going away to Liverpool. So, I mean, my heart says obviously City will win, but being ever pragmatic, I'll be happy to walk away from this game with a 0-0 or a 1-1 draw, to be honest.
Wow, City wants to walk away with a 0-0.
Wow.
Neil, you must be in
That's good
Joyland.
news for me, man. That's good news.
about accumulating points.
I'm gonna ring this. I'm gonna ring up Jurgen and tell him what Drew said. Yeah, let Klopp know that they're going for a draw. Just beat them. No, to be honest, City's one of the few teams that I kind of dread when we play. They'll either play really well or they won't. For me, I think this is going to be more of a technical game. It's going to be like a chess game, to be honest. Both teams are going to try and defend better than they attack. Both are going to try and play counter attack, which is going to make the game pretty boring, to be honest. But I do see that being a 1-1 draw, to be honest.
Wow. Andy?
I mean, in games between massive teams, often do end up as draws. 1-1 is a popular scoreline in big matches,
and it's early in the season as well. So if you have got a winner, it's not going to decide who wins.
It's true.
The league.
I believe that City. Yeah, I thought City were a bit unlucky at PSG the other night. They overpowered Chelsea last weekend, and I think that they've got enough to beat Liverpool this weekend. So I am going to go for a 2-1 Manchester City win.
Wow. Simon?
I was surprised to see Drew playing down his side's
He always
record at Anfield, given that
This is my tactic for the past year.
but you won 4-1 there last season, didn't you? You put 4 goals past Liverpool at Anfield.
Yes.
But as an aside, I think Andy's right. I can see a draw in this game, so I will go for 1-1.
So I'll say a couple of things. One is, Neil talked about the style of play. City only plays one way. They press. They don't play counter-attacking, really. It may end up being a counter-attacking situation. They press you hard because they want to win the ball back and dominate the ball. So then you have to spend all your energy trying to chase them for the ball, which you can never get off them. And PSG was the same way the other day. That's why Neymar and others were seem insignificant in that game. And if Silva scored that goal, it may have been a different situation in terms of the outcome. I will say, though, Liverpool does play City well over the last number of years because City is vulnerable if you can get the ball behind them. They're playing up to the halfway line. So if you get the ball behind them, they have some challenge trying to recover and catch you. And Liverpool have the horses between Mane and Salah. I know Jota is even better.
I will say one thing, though. City are much better at the moment now that with seemingly put Cancelo in ahead of Zinchenko permanently at left back.
Yeah.
It does mean we have pace now on both flanks defensively, which was a big issue for us last year, especially when we played Chelsea in the Champions League. So
what's going on with Stone?
He was. I think he was out then injured somewhat. They say he had some injury. I thought.
Well, apparently he was injured, but then obviously he started 2 games in the international break for England, came back, and he's just not been seen again.
Well, that's City, right? If you're Sterling or Mahrez or a Stone, whoever you are, or you're even Fernandinho, you may be out of the team and someone's playing well, you're not getting back in anytime soon.
I mean,
or he's trying to find a way to fit you in because there's a lot of competitions he has to compete in.
I can't believe I'm about to say this about John Stones after last season as well. Because John Stones was incredibly good the second half of last season for City. But Laporte seems to be back at the form he was at before he ruptured his cruciate. That Laporte is a world-class centre-back. John Stones will never be a world-class centre-back. As much as I love him, he's never going to be the same quality defender as Diaz or Laporte. So, although it's sad because I think he's brilliant, but Laporte's he is absolutely top quality, which is why when we're talking about Harry Kane to City, it's why Andy probably would have been happy to have seen Laporte go the other way.
Well, I do think City's going to come to a point after the season where some players are going to feel so disenchanted that they probably want to leave, like the Sterlings of the world.
Well, Bernardo Silva tried it, but the only team interested was Arsenal. He didn't want to go to you.
Well, that's the thing. He could have left, but he chose to stay because he wants to play Champions League football. And Barcelona doesn't have the money to buy him.
Actually, Barcelona are interested, but aren't allowed to buy Ronaldo.
I mean, their quota in the league is less than 100 mil. They can afford anybody.
Silva to us, but we said no, which I thought was a bit of a strange decision. But anyway,
you said no.
Yeah, apparently.
Well, you said no to Tomiyasu too, so we took him. So you're saying no to very good players, by the way, which is
I agree. I think the recruitment, one of the big problems at Tottenham is whoever's in charge of recruitment needs firing because there have been some very, very strange decisions made.
Silva is an exceptional footballer. I'm surprised.
I absolutely love him, and I don't understand why we'd let him go. I think he's.
Well, I think he wants to leave, right? I mean,
because I don't think he wanted to come to us, just like he didn't want to go to Arsenal. But it was still a strange decision.
It's like I wouldn't even be willing to entertain the idea of letting him go though, because he's shown now that Gundogan's out. He's literally just filling in Gundogan's position from last season. He's not the holding midfielder, but he's the playmaker. He's making everything tick over, and he's genuinely he's a top quality footballer.
You've just got so many of them. You've got Sylvie, you've got De Bruyne, Foden, Mahrez. You've got so many, Gundogan when he's fit. You know, you've got so many of them that can make the game. That's why when you rotate it, you know, you can bring in another 3 guys for the Liverpool game on Sunday from the PSG game the other day, and they'll still play just as well. It's just you've got 5, 6 creative players in the side and in the squad, which other teams just don't have.
So here's the question, Andy. Here's the question. If you are a youngster coming through the Man City system, you're a midfielder. Wouldn't you go someplace else? Because there's no way you break through that rank.
You'd want to go because what's being proven by the likes of Bellingham and Sancho when he went abroad, and that these players come on a bundle much, much quicker by playing top level games week in, week out than they do sitting on the playing in the training sessions and playing for the under 23s in the academies. You know, they need to play the games. That's how you learn. That's how you learn where you can run, where you should go, what runs other people are going to make. You need to be playing the games. That's how you get the experience, and that's why so many of them now aren't signing new contracts. I mean, people will probably people will get to hear about a young lad called Dennis Sirkin. Spurs sold him for £1 million to Sunderland in the window. Who's only 18, 19 years old, left back, and he's great. But because we had Reguilon and Davis, he thought, well, I'm not getting into the Spurs setup anytime soon. So he refused to sign a new contract. So with his contract running down, we chose to just get whatever we could for a young lad who hadn't made many first team appearances. And he's gone to Sunderland. Keep an eye on him. Dennis Sirkin, I think you'll find he makes his way back into the Premier League over the next year or two.
I'm just going to say,
we can't get the football.
I need to say, when it comes to Man City's academy, we can criticise it because of the amount of players that get chewed up and spat out by it. It's the same as any other football academy, though. But Jadon Sancho was in that City academy. Jadon Sancho demanded more money than what he was, quite frankly, bloody well worth at the time. Phil Foden stayed in that City academy. Phil Foden's now probably got a better prospect of his international career. He's got Premier League titles now. Phil Foden's an important part of a championship-winning team. Jadon Sancho's a £72 million player.
Phil Foden
who's been replaced already by Ronaldo, effectively, in United rotation, because
Phil Foden is more of an exception to the rule, though, because he is an exceptional player, and he has just had the ability to force his way through. If you look at the vast majority, they don't.
Drew, I say something, Drew. He actually was ready before he got to be a regular.
Yeah.
He should have been in the team earlier. Just like Bellingham is in the Dortmund team. He was ready a year before, and Pep held him back because Silva was there. And now they got him to the team. So think about it, most youngsters will not be, as Andy said, for Foden's capability. They need time to develop. Can they do that? City, who has done really well in developing players and buying players at an early stage, can you see a pathway to get into the City first team anytime you're a player, given what we talked about, the abundance of talent they have at their disposal?
If you're good enough, the chance will come up eventually. But the problem is the players that have come through the system haven't been as good as the players we can bring in.
What are you saying, Andy?
I'm saying when teams have got like 10, 12, 50, 60 million pound players ahead of them in the pecking order, it's incredibly difficult to force your way into a first team with that level of experience, that are on that kind of money. Clubs don't want to be paying guys 200 grand a week to sit on the bench.
Exactly.
You know, the man who gets the chance.
It absolutely is, but you need to have the drive of a Foden or a Bellingham to get that far at any club.
True. Bellingham's exceptional as well. I mean,
I genuinely think out of this current crop of young England players, I think Bellingham's going to be, he's going to be the best player that we see in this generation by a country mile as well.
He's so
he's well developed at a very young age too, which helps. Unlike Saka, is small and is taking out a pounding at a young age. He's pretty well developed for an 18-year-old going into 19. So, and he's a very, very good player. So we've come to the end of the program.
Great to see him at City, actually.
To do what? Watch Silva play, or De Bruyne?
Just link him up with, I don't know.
You can't hoard all the talent. You can't hoard all the talent, Drew. Spread it out.
We need to replace Gundogan next year. He's going to be 31.
The violins are out, man. The violins are out.
Honestly, it's a hardship. All right.
You want Declan Rice, don't you?
I honestly, right. More power to Declan Rice for what he's doing in his career. He's doing absolutely fantastic for someone that has the natural ability of a deer walking on ice. I do not get it. I really don't. He's got no range of passing, no vision. Defensively, he's susceptible to being outpaced by anyone I've ever seen run against him. But still, people want to buy him for 100 million. So more power to the lad.
Well, you bought Grealish for 100 million, and his goal scored and assist record is not wonderful.
I'm just going to say, when we say you brought Grealish, I do not believe that Grealish is a £100 million player still.
Look at Grealish's stats. I look at his stats, and I'm saying,
he's the most fouled player, isn't he? He's the most fouled player. That's why they got him.
Not in Paris the other night, you weren't. You couldn't buy a free kick against PSG.
He's an improved St. Maximum. That's the way I view Grealish. But anyway, we've come to the end of the program. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Any closing comments? I'll start with Drew first.
I I just hope it's a good weekend of entertaining football, and I hope that Andy isn't ready to finish it all by Monday.
Simon. Hey, Simon, first of all, thanks for joining us. Really great having you. Glad Brentford is up there. Played great
nice
football in the
having
championship.
Brentford fan in. Very good.
Brentford has played really well in the championship for years.
Yeah.
So deservedly in the Premier League. So welcome and glad to have you, and hope you come back to join us. Your closing comments.
You're welcome. I've really enjoyed joining you all to talk about football tonight, and I guess share a Brentford perspective, but also get the perspective of supporters of some of the bigger clubs in the Premier League. So thank you, guys.
Neil?
Well, hopefully it's going to be a good weekend of football. I'm a little bit worried with the City game, whereas if Milner plays left back because AA is injured, he's going to be off for a couple of weeks. It's not going to look good. But Klopp's been rotating, and we've done pretty well. So I'm hoping that we do all right. But I want to see the Spurs and the Arsenal scores and see what you guys say next week. That's what I'm interested in.
Andy?
I mean,
Just imagine if we're actually wrong about these results and Brighton end up capitulating. Sorry, absolutely turning Arsenal over. And just imagine if Spurs absolutely turn over Villa.
Oh my days! There's not enough room in this forum for two more bigger heads,
Andy, your closing comments. Yeah, I mean, just like I say, when we were top of the league, we weren't the best team in the league, and now we're struggling. We're not the worst team in the league. At the end of the day, you've got to have a bit of perspective. I still think that we are capable of challenging for Europe, but we need to get some team camaraderie, and we need to find a system and a method that is going to work for the players. Whether Nuno's the right man, I'm not convinced, but you've got to give the guy more than 6 games with all the bad blood that's there. It's not all the bad feeling is not down to Nuno. So, give it a chance, but I'd like to see him pick the right side. I think if he keeps playing Dyer and Sanchez at centre-half, we're going to continue having problems. If he keeps playing, and it's not like I don't like Dele Alli and Ndombele, but right now, they're not the men you need. Right now, we need to roll up our sleeves and fight. And I don't think Ali or Ndombele are the right people right now. I'm not saying they won't be in time in a more confident setup, but right now we need players that are going to roll up their sleeves and fight for the shirt. I've been very impressed by Bryan Hill, but I think Son, Moore, and Kane are the front 3 by choice. Bergwijn's still injured. When he comes back, he'll be a contender as well because of his pace. But yeah, I mean, like I said, Villa are very strong. It wouldn't shock me if Villa beat us on Sunday, and that's something I wouldn't have said in previous seasons. But I believe that we can bounce back, and I'm hoping for a Spurs win. And if that happens, then we go into the international break on a higher note. If we lose, I think the international break is going to be 2 weeks of media nonsense about how everything's falling apart. And so we'll see what happens.
Early days. It's still early days in the league.
The best pleasure for an Arsenal fan is to see Spurs in turmoil, but I won't focus on Spurs in my closing comments. I'll say a couple of things. One is, it's a good weekend. There's some good games on, whether it's Brighton, Arsenal, Spurs, Villa, West Ham, Brentford, and the final one is Man City, Liverpool. So good weekend to watch football.
Well.
Yeah, but it's before the Man U Everton is also a good game. It's the week before the international break, so we're going to take a break from football. Hopefully, Antonio gets his shooting boots on for Jamaica when he plays against the US next week Thursday.
Yes,
and so if he gets in a good place, so he can get some goals. And by the way, Tony, we asked him to come play for us. He told us to wait. I guess he's waiting for Southgate. Keep waiting. But I'll say this, which is, thanks everyone for joining us. It's been great having you. Great having this panel. Really good discussion. The football is heating up. It's the best league in the world, and we love it. And hope to see you again maybe next. Even though we have the national break, maybe we'll just have a program to prepare for the upcoming week, the subsequent week. But thanks for joining us. Really enjoyed. And you guys have a great evening and a great night. And look forward to a great weekend of football.
Cool.
Thank you,
Have
guys.
a good weekend, gentlemen.
Bye, everybody.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.